Nintendo. It's such a magical word. A magical word that we usually associate with phrases like fun, unique, colorful games, or how did they only produce 20 of this thing that 10 million people pre-ordered? Ever since they changed gaming in the early 80s, Nintendo's brand has permeated pop culture all around the world, including our favorite cartoons. Hi, I'm Jacob with Channel Frederator, and today we're here to gracefully jump onto the best Nintendo references and cartoons that you missed. Let's go! I've mentioned before how terrible my Mario impression is, so let's just get started. The Powerpuff Girls and Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. In the original Powerpuff Girls series, we find a classic reference in the Season 3 episode Child Fearing. The professor is late for a science presentation, and having forgotten to call a babysitter for the girls, he asks the mayor for help, but he's busy playing an uncannily familiar video game. Yep, it's a parody of the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. But it looks like the mayor is not the most skilled player at this. He keeps crashing into the walls, somehow losing 5 lives in the process. And then he even kills Navi! That's actually pretty understandable. This isn't the only Nintendo reference in a Craig McCracken show, though. Many fans of Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends argue that there are a bunch of hidden visual references to Nintendo franchises, like this kid who looks a little too much like Lucas from Mother 3. Coincidence? We think not. But maybe. Apparently Craig McCracken didn't know about Mother 3 at all, but maybe someone else on the team did, because they look pretty darn similar. Gravity Falls. Other than McCracken, there's a younger showrunner who is a proud, die-hard fan of Nintendo, Alex Hirsch, creator of Gravity Falls. Not only does he love to talk about Nintendo on his Twitter account, but he also made sure that there were some sweet references in the mysterious town of Gravity Falls. Remember in the first episode when Mabel shows off her grappling hook in such a distinct pose? Doesn't that pose seem vaguely Wind Waker-y? And doesn't the grappling hook remind you of Link's hookshot? Just a little bit. Or in the episode Dungeons, Dungeons, and More Dungeons when Stan swats at a fairy and she weakly says, "Hey, look, listen!" Killing Navi seems to be a common theme when it comes to Zelda jokes. Guess that's what happens when you annoy an entire generation for so many years. But we still love all of the Zelda references. However, the episode with the absolute most gaming references is probably Fight Fighters, wherein Dipper accidentally unleashes a Street Fighter-like character called Rumble McSkirmish who wreaks havoc all over Gravity Falls. Later in the episode, Rumble is seen throwing barrels a la Donkey Kong, chiptune music and all. Doug's Super Pretendo. Sometimes including a Nintendo reference doesn't necessarily mean granting it praise. In the Doug episode, Doug's Lost Weekend, the writers crafted a cautionary tale about the dangers of video game addiction. When Doug and Skeeter go to the mall to check out their local tech shop, Computer Junkie, Doug becomes the 10,000th customer and wins a video game system called the Super Pretendo. Do you get it? Do you get it? You get what they did there? It comes with a game called Space Monks, and Doug gets so invested in the game that he soon has trouble sleeping and concentrating in class. He only cares about playing that game non-stop, and it ends up messing up his life balance and his homework assignments. By the end of the episode, Doug overcomes his addiction, and then his dog Porkchop can be seen playing the Super Pretendo. I mean, I would scold him, but mostly I'm just impressed. Steven Universe. If there's any show that's constantly dishing out love for Nintendo, it's Steven Universe. Many of its consoles subtly appear in different episodes, like Sour Cream's multiple Game Boys for his chiptune party and Alone Together, or Steven's GameCube featured in many episodes. Steven also appears to own both the games Animal Crossing and The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker, and in the online short Steven Reacts, you can even catch a glimpse of more games in Steven's library. They consist of Steel Cog, Pikemen 2, Star Battlers Team Leader, Louie's Estate, Smash Pals Scuffle, and Forever Darkness. Can you guess which GameCube games they're parodying? Yeah, me neither, they're pretty thickly veiled. An older but still beloved console that appears in Steven Universe is the Nintendo 64, and it's not just a nostalgic prop, but it also serves a specific role in the show. Remember the drill that Steven and Peridot used to travel to the Earth's core? Well, its blaster is controlled by an N64 controller. And if that's how the Crystal Gems want to design their weapons, they are gonna have no trouble finding an army in the late 90s, early 2000s, kids. Just don't give the mayor of Townsville a controller. Regular Show. Another cartoon that's squeezed in many nostalgic gaming references is Regular Show. In the Season 1 episode High Score, Mordecai and Rigby play an arcade machine called Broken Bones, which is a parody of the classic NES game Excitebike. Then they challenge GBF, a godlike entity who is shaped like a giant floating head, to see who can beat his high score, but that's another story. And what about the Maximum Glove, one of the biggest items in the mythology of Regular Show? After Rigby and Mordecai won it in the episode Video Game Wizards, it proved to be completely useless. Kinda like the Power Glove, one of the worst video game game controllers that came out for the NES and became a critical and commercial failure. But hey, at least JG Quintel made it an actual powerful item within the show, as it's been used in the epic battle involving the baby ducks and their lifelong rivals, the evil geese. It even appears in the final episode, since it's one of Mordecai's special possessions that he chooses to take with him. Teen Titans Go. Look, whether you're a lover or hater of the show, we have to take our hats off to their creative team for including a reference to Star Fox in the very first episode. That is commitment to your Nintendo fandom. Titled Legendary Sandwich, this episode shows Starfire mentioning the Lilat system, which is the setting of the Star Fox games, in one of her space quests. More subtle Nintendo references? Well, in the following episode, Pie Bros, Cyborg imagines in a thought bubble a video game called Bubble Bots. Its cover is somewhat reminiscent to the box art of Super Mario Bros. 2. With tiny nods like these, it's no surprise that Teen Titans Go decided to go full throttle in episodes like video game references. Yeah, that's literally the title of the episode. Robin invites everyone to join him in his imagination room where video game realities can be loaded using an NES-like cartridge. Of all the video games parodied, 2 of them are truly Nintendo-esque. Robin's is called Save the Princess, which is quite obviously making fun of the first Super Mario Bros. Except in this game, hitting blocks gives you concussions, but also money, so you know, it balances out. And if you go down a pipe, there's just sewage, because it's a sewage pipe. On the other hand, Starfire's mission is a deconstruction of the first Legend of Zelda. She finds the "it's dangerous to go alone" elderly man, discovers that he's actually lonely, and invites him to join her quest. Soon, Starfire recruits every enemy she encounters thanks to the power of scratches and dance. And while everyone's happily dancing, the evil wizard is busy taking over the world. Futurama. Another cartoon that managed to mix and match all kinds of video game references in just a few minutes was the cult TV series Futurama. In its second anthology of interest, which is basically Futurama's equivalent to the Simpsons' Treehouse of Horror episodes, Fry asks, what if the world were more like a video game? So according to the professor's what-if machine, here's what would happen. After some failed negotiations in the UN, where Mario is the Italian diplomat because of course he is, Ambassador Kong from the planet Nintendo 64 declares war on Earth, and Fry is summoned as a military expert thanks to his knowledge of 20th century video games. Well, all of the Nintendians' attacks resemble classic arcade games like Pac-Man and Space Invaders. Donkey Kong as a planetary villain is a nice callback to the very first scene of Futurama, where Fry was rambling about the beauty of space and how it seems to go on and on forever, but then you get to the end and a gorilla starts throwing barrels at you. Doesn't he always? The Simpsons. Well, while we're here talking about Futurama, we should probably also talk about The Simpsons too, since they did it first because they've done everything first. One of their first gags referencing Nintendo characters was in Marge Be Not Proud, the classic episode from season 7 where Bart steals a video game called Bone Storm after Marge refuses to buy it due to its, immersive ultraviolence. When facing his desired game in the store, a bunch of Nintendo characters appear and float around Bart as different parts of his conscience. Mario, Luigi, and Donkey Kong strongly encourage him to steal it, but there's that other dude from a golfing video game who tells Bart not to do it since the game won't help his putting. Okay, that is a super weak argument, Mr. Lee Carvalho. If anything, it's an argument to steal your game. I would have listened to the Nintendo crew too. Also, Sonic was there, but this isn't a Sega video, so who cares? South Park. Rivaling The Simpsons in its quest to make fun of everything in pop culture, South Park has, of course, parodied gaming culture many, many times. One of our favorite examples is the 2-part episode Go God Go, where Cartman can't wait for the release of the Nintendo Wii and decides to freeze himself at the top of a snowy mountain with the help of Butters just to skip the last 3 painful weeks of waiting. And of course, he ends up waking up much later in the future. Still, he tries to find and play the Wii since he heard that he can find one in a museum, but it's not compatible with 26th century screens. We're not going to spoil the epic plot of the episode, but we'll just tell you that it involves a bunch of time travel shenanigans because all good things do. Cartman's obsession was inspired by South Park creator Trey Parker, who was channeling his urge to play the new Zelda on the Wii. Even Nintendo embraced the Wii's cameo with free Wiis for the South Park staff. Pretty sweet, right? Which leads us to our final and favorite pick, Rick and Morty. Maybe Rick and Morty's creator and voice actor Justin Roiland was inspired by South Park's showrunners and realized the true potential that satirical product placement has: to get free stuff. Cause in the season 2 episode Total Recall, Rick bursts into the scene to tell everyone that he got a bunch of Nintendo 3DS systems at Walmart for $149.99 on sale, plus every time you buy one you get a $50 gift card, brings the total price down to $110 after tax. This means that they can all resell them online for $230 a piece, easy. They're all the limited edition Zelda ones. They can be rich, and also that they get to keep one, and then they can play Nintendo games. The scene ends with Rick breaking the fourth wall and saying to the camera, "Nintendo, give me free stuff." Alright, you might not have missed this reference like the video title suggests, but it's too great a reference to not mention. And you know what? It worked, kinda. For both Rick and Justin. Rick can be seen playing a 3DS in the episode Look Who's Purging Now. Maybe he flipped those 3DSs and he kept one? And Justin Roiland got a bunch of free swag from Nintendo. Or at least some unofficial gifts from employees, that is. The good news is that with all of the money he earned from Rick and Morty, Roiland recently started his own indie VR studio. Now what would someone like Justin Roiland name that studio? Squanchtendo. Yeah, the name's a mix of Squanchy the cat and Nintendo. Hey, don't squanch at us like that, it was Justin's idea. Game's over for Nintendo references right now, but if you like what you saw, we might use a continue later on. Once again, I'm Jacob with Channel Frederator, and thanks for watching Nintendo references and cartoons that you missed. Which ones were your favorites? Any other references or parodies that we might have missed? Let us know in the comments, and also don't forget to click that little bell icon to become part of our notification squad. And don't forget to jump up and punch that subscribe button like a good mustached plumber would do. Because remember, Frederator loves you.